I thought it was just another ordinary day at the dealership. A customer that nobody wanted to serve walked in, dressed in dirty, torn clothes. Everyone laughed when he entered, making jokes and humiliating that man. I decided to treat him with respect, but I couldn't believe it when he revealed who he was. That day, my life changed completely. It was a day like any other at Elite Motors, where luxury was not just a concept, but a requirement. I spent most of my time behind an immaculate marble counter, under bright lights that reflected off the most desirable cars on the market. The scent of new leather and polishing wax filled the air, and the salespeople's attention was always focused on clients who sported expensive watches and tailored suits, appearing ready to pay for those motorized dreams. Then he walked in. The man had a simple appearance, worn jeans, a shirt that seemed to have seen better days, and shoes that told stories of many miles walked. I noticed how the environment changed instantly. Salespeople Rodrigo and Alexandra, always ready to impress, exchanged looks of disdain and continued to ignore the man. But something in his eyes caught my attention. He wasn't the typical customer who got lost in numbers or technical details. He seemed to observe everything with a critical, almost analytical eye. He approached hesitantly and asked about one of the most expensive models in the lineup. Rodrigo, with his sarcastic smile, replied, "This one? I'm not sure it's in your budget, buddy." Alexandra chuckled softly, as if sharing an inside joke. I felt a discomfort rising within me. I decided to intervene. I stepped out from behind the counter and approached him with a genuine smile. "Good afternoon. This is the latest model, one of the best in terms of performance and safety. I can show you the specifications if you'd like." The man looked at me, surprised, as if he wasn't used to that kind of treatment in places like this. He accepted my offer, and we briefly discussed the car. I noticed how he seemed interested not only in the vehicle but also in the environment around him, as if he was absorbing every detail. Before leaving, he thanked me with a firm handshake and a look of gratitude that stayed with me for the rest of the day. I had no idea who he was, but something told me that interaction wouldn't be forgotten anytime soon. The next morning, everything changed. Gabriel Vega wasn't just an ordinary man. He was a close friend of Carlos Montalban, a legendary figure in the automotive industry and owner of the car manufacturer we sold. His visit had been a test, and Elite Motors had spectacularly failed. However, my sincere connection with Gabriel did not go unnoticed. While Rodrigo and Alexandre's faces paled upon hearing about the incident's repercussions, Carlos Montalban decided to give the dealership a second chance, but with one condition: I would lead the transformation process. Accepting the responsibility to lead the transformation at Elite Motors was both an exciting and daunting challenge. I had been just a receptionist until the day before, with no formal management experience, but suddenly I found myself at the center of attention. Some looked at me with curiosity, others with skepticism. Among them, Rodrigo seemed willing to collaborate, perhaps out of shame for his previous behavior, while Alexandra did not hide his disdain. My first step was to present the training plan that Gabriel and Carlos Montalban had suggested. The focus was not just on selling cars, but on creating an exceptional experience for customers. "We don't just sell vehicles, we sell dreams," I explained in the initial meeting. My tone was firm yet friendly, trying to convey confidence. And every person who walks through that door deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their appearance or bank account. The salespeople murmured among themselves, some nodding in agreement. Alexandra, however, crossed his arms and, with a sarcastic smile, asked, "And what do you know about sales? You were a receptionist until yesterday." The room fell silent, and I felt the weight of everyone's gaze on me. I took a deep breath and responded, "You're right, Alexandra. I'm not a salesperson, but I know how people want to be treated. That's what brought me here. Now, if you have another suggestion, I'm open to hearing it." He rolled his eyes but didn't say anything more. The tension was palpable, but I couldn't let it intimidate me. I knew resistance would be part of the process. In the first month, I implemented simple but significant changes: regular training, performance evaluations, and even direct feedback from customers. Many salespeople began to stand out positively, especially Rodrigo, who seemed determined to show he could do things differently. He started treating customers with empathy and even apologized to Gabriel for his previous rudeness. Alexandre, however, continued his toxic behavior. One afternoon, I heard shouting in the showroom and came across a regrettable scene. Alexandre was arguing with a customer, clearly irritated. "If you can't afford it, why are you here wasting my time?" he shouted. The customer, embarrassed, turned to leave, but I quickly caught up with him. "I apologize for his behavior. Let me assist you with whatever you need." With patience, I managed to resolve the situation, but at the end of the day, I called Alexandre in for a conversation. "This cannot happen again, Alexandre. Our job is not to judge customers, and if you're not willing to change, there's no place for you here." He looked at me with disdain and replied, "You don't have the power to fire me. And frankly, this is all a waste of time." It was a harsh blow, but I knew that to change the company culture, I would have to face resistance like his head-on. Despite the challenges, results began to show. A customer left an emotional testimonial about the new approach at Elite Motors, praising Rodrigo and the service he received. This kind of recognition boosted the morale of the team and showed that the effort was worth it. But not everything was positive. Some team members, encouraged by Alexandre, began making malicious comments, spreading rumors that I was only in my position because of favoritism from Gabriel. The gossip hit a peak when I overheard one of them say, "She must be wanting something more from the millionaire, it can only be that." At that moment, I realized I needed to demonstrate my competence beyond question. To do this, I intensified the training, involved employees in weekly meetings, and implemented a policy of transparency. Gradually, those who resisted began to see that the changes were not temporary. Meanwhile, Gabriel was becoming a more constant presence, supporting the transformations with encouraging words and concrete actions, such as the creation of an incentive program for the highest-rated salespeople. He also advised me, especially when I felt overwhelmed. Our conversations became moments of relief and inspiration, and I began to admire not just his business acumen, but also his humanity. The winds of change that started to blow at Elite Motors brought good results, but they also revealed deep fissures in the system. As more customers praised the new approach and the dealership began to regain its reputation, the smiles of Rodrigo and other team members reflected pride and satisfaction. On the other hand, Alexandre and his allies remained a constant reminder that progress would never be unanimous. Everything seemed to be on the right track until one morning, I was surprised by a flood of messages on my phone. Sensational headlines plastered accusations against Elite Motors. Words like fraud and scandal jumped off the screen, and my breath grew heavy as I opened an article detailing alleged unethical practices at the company. Odometer tampering on used vehicles, selling cars with questionable parts, and even bribery for financing approvals. At the headquarters, panic was palpable. Rodrigo approached me with wide eyes. "Is this true? Are we involved in these things?" I did my best to stay calm. "No, Rodrigo. These accusations are serious, but as far as I know, we've never allowed anything like this. We need to investigate." I called an emergency meeting with the entire team. The tension in the air was tangible. As I explained that we would look into the origins of the accusations, I noticed Alexandre leaning against the wall, wearing a subtle smirk. There was something about him that didn't sit right with me. With Gabriel's support, we hired a legal team and an external auditor to assess the allegations. The initial checks found no irregularities, but the damage to the dealership's reputation was already done. Customers began canceling purchases, and unexpected returns started surfacing. The phone rang incessantly with journalists seeking statements. A week later, during the analysis of internal emails, something shocking was discovered. Alexandre was colluding with a competing dealership to create false accusations. The emails revealed that he had fabricated documents to prove the fraud and passed information to journalists. I was left speechless. No matter how difficult Alexandre had been, I never imagined he was capable of something so destructive. Gabriel, who had been by my side during the revelation, placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "You need to decide how we're going to handle this." I waited until the end of the workday to confront Alexandre. I called him in for a private conversation with Gabriel present. "So, you were sabotaging the company," I began, keeping my tone controlled but firm. He shrugged, as if he didn't care. This company doesn't deserve the success you think you're building. You all want to change everything and act like you're better." Gabriel intervened, his voice heavy with indignation. "And so you decided to lie and destroy everyone's reputation here? How many people did you hurt to prove a point that isn't even valid?" Alexandra looked at Gabriel with disdain. "People like you don't understand. You have everything handed to you. I just did what was necessary to put this dealership in its place." It was clear he felt no remorse. With the evidence in hand, we immediately contacted the lawyers for legal action against him. Alexandra was fired on the spot, and measures were taken to protect the dealership from further attacks. Despite the relief of having uncovered the truth, we still needed to regain our customers' trust. Gabriel and I decided to face the problem head-on. We called a press conference where we explained the events, presented the evidence of sabotage, and reaffirmed our commitment to transparency and ethics. I remember how my heart raced before stepping onto the stage. I had never spoken in front of so many people, and I knew my words would be crucial. I took a deep breath and said, "Elite Motors is not perfect, but we are committed to excellence and honesty." Today, more than ever, we reaffirm that we will not tolerate unethical practices and will work to ensure our customers always receive the best. Gabriel, standing beside me, added, "The truth prevailed, and that's what motivates us to move forward." The press conference was a success. Slowly, customers who had distanced themselves began to return, and sales started to pick up again. Rodrigo and other team members became more engaged than ever, as if the crisis had reinforced our purpose. Elite Motors was rising again, but the crisis had left deep scars. Even with the truth about Alexandra exposed, some doubts lingered in the air, and the pressure to keep the dealership on the right path had never been more intense. It felt like all eyes were on me, waiting for me to fail, or perhaps prove once and for all that I deserved to be there. Gabriel, always by my side, seemed even more involved in the future of the company, and, in a way, with me. Our conversations had become more personal, more intimate. I could sense that he was building something beyond a business plan, but I still didn't quite know what it was. Weeks passed, and we began implementing new systems to prevent any gaps in our operations. One of these systems revealed alarming data. Old transactions, approved long before my promotion, showed signs of irregularities. But the most surprising thing was that these operations had been signed by Carlos Montalban, the very owner of the car manufacturer. At first, I didn't want to believe it. Carlos, the man who had given me an opportunity and trusted me to transform Elite Motors, seemed to be involved in unethical practices. I decided to confront Gabriel first, hoping he would know something that could explain it. I found him in the conference room, his eyes lost in papers that clearly also bore compromising evidence. When I entered, he looked up, visibly disturbed. "You saw it, didn't you?" he asked, almost in a whisper. I shook my head. "Gabriel, this can't be true. Carlos has always been the cornerstone of everything we've done here. He wouldn't be capable of this, would he?" Gabriel sighed deeply, as if he were carrying the weight of the world. I didn't want to believe it either, but the documents don't lie. Carlos approved suspicious financing and profited silently while shifting the blame onto local managers. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. Carlos Montalban, the man I admired and considered a mentor, was compromised. This put everything we had built at risk. "What are we going to do?" I asked, feeling the weight of responsibility. Gabriel looked at me, a mix of pain and determination in his eyes. "We're going to reveal the truth, no matter the cost." We organized a meeting with Carlos, Gabriel, and me, without alerting him to the reason. Carlos arrived relaxed, as always, but his expression shifted when Gabriel placed the documents in front of him. "Carlos, we need answers," Gabriel began, his voice steady. "This shows you were aware of practices that go against everything we stand for." Carlos remained calm, but there was something in his eyes that didn't seem surprised. "And what do you want me to say? That I did what was necessary to keep the numbers up? That's the reality, Gabriel. The market doesn't forgive." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you sacrificed the integrity of your entire network of dealerships to save your own skin?" He laughed, a bitter sound. "You're so idealistic. Don't you realize yet? The business world isn't a fairy tale." The tension in the room was suffocating. But Gabriel, unlike me, seemed prepared for it. He stood up, facing Carlos head-on. Maybe that's how it is in your world, but it won't be in mine. You gave us a chance to rebuild this company, and now we're going to rebuild it without you. Carlos's eyes widened. Are you challenging me, kid? You have what you have because I gave it to you? Gabriel stood firm. And now I'm taking it away. In the days that followed, Gabriel gathered the manufacturer's board and presented all the evidence. Carlos was removed from his position, and the company publicly announced a restructuring. Despite the scandal, the action had a positive impact. For the first time, the automotive industry recognized the need for transparency and ethics in its business practices. After the chaos, Elite Motors not only survived, but emerged as a model of integrity. Gabriel, always present in every decision, called me to a special meeting, but this time, it was away from the dealership. We met at a quiet restaurant overlooking the city. When he arrived, I noticed something different in his expression, less worry and more hope. I could never have done this without you, he said, holding my hand for the first time. My breath caught for a moment, and before I could respond, he continued, Since the day I walked into that dealership, I knew you were different, not just because of your kindness, but because of your strength. You taught me that even in the midst of chaos, it's possible to maintain integrity. Gabriel took a small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple ring, full of meaning. I want to spend the rest of my life learning from you. Will you marry me? Tears came before I could say anything. I could only nod in affirmation before finally answering, Yes, Gabriel. Yes. The following months after the scandal brought profound changes, not only to Elite Motors, but to the entire network of dealerships connected to the manufacturer. With Carlos Montalban ousted, the company began a new chapter, focusing on ethics, innovation, and responsibility. The training program I had implemented became a model to be followed, expanding to branches across the country. As part of the restructuring, I received an offer that changed my life, to be promoted to Director of Corporate Culture at Beggar Industries, Gabriel's holding company, which oversaw the manufacturer and other companies in the group. It was a giant leap in my career and an opportunity to extend my vision beyond Elite Motors. On my last day at the dealership, Rodrigo approached me with a shy smile. I don't know if I've told you this, but you changed my life. I never thought about how I treated people until you showed up. I hugged him, feeling immense pride. It wasn't just the company that had changed, but the people as well. My relationship with Gabriel flourished amid all this. He was my support in tough times and my partner in victories. Our wedding was simple yet meaningful, with friends and colleagues who had been part of our journey. During the ceremony, he made it a point to say something that stuck with me. No matter what the future holds, I know we can overcome anything, because you've shown me that integrity is the greatest value. Our work at Beggar Industries became an extension of who we were as individuals. Together, we helped implement practices that prioritized customer experience and respect, not just for consumers, but for all employees of the company. The idea of transforming the automotive industry had once seemed impossible, but it was beginning to materialize. As I looked out over the city from the heights of our new home during a peaceful sunset, I reflected on everything that had happened. From the day Gabriel walked into Elite Motors with his humble demeanor to that moment, I realized that true transformation always starts from within. It wasn't easy to face prejudice, sabotage, and scandals, but each obstacle strengthened us and taught us something valuable. Today, Elite Motors stands as a symbol of excellence, and Beggar Industries is an example of innovation and ethics in the automotive sector. More importantly, my story isn't just about a successful career or corporate changes. It's about how values like respect, empathy, and courage can transform lives, including my own. With Gabriel by my side, I know our journey is just beginning. We have much to build, both in our work and personal lives. But one thing I'm certain of, when we do what's right, even amid adversity, we create a future worth having.